Welcome to season 2 of Step into Success. We are taking you in the trenches with real entrepreneurs that are currently building their business. We speak with people from all different industries, from all corners of the globe. So you can check it out on YouTube or you can listen on Spotify. Welcome to another episode of Step into Success. I am honored to have someone who I consider to be a good friend, but also a very successful man in his industry, Gabe Dawson. Gabe, you do a lot, man. So I'm just going to let you introduce yourself to kick it off.
Yeah, sure. Darion, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, man. It's great to be able to connect. I know that our relationship, and what we've been able to talk about, there's so many things that we relate on, sales background, just the mindset of just being a winner and just having a great attitude and a mindset of really, putting your best foot forward to be able to do something great. And so, yeah, man, I mean, my background, I come from a family of two younger brothers. I'm the oldest. So, I always have to make things happen. Some of you guys that are, oldest in your family are like, man, we got to be the example, right? My mom actually, grew up pretty much every 2 to 3 years moving just because my mom worked for the federal government. So, essentially was able to fly all across the country. It was really fun. It was a great experience. It taught me a lot about having to let go of relationships and find new ones. And it helped a lot for networking purposes. But we also had some unique experiences. My mom had some, because my mom was pretty much single mom. My mom was divorced 3 times pretty much. And so, I knew what I wanted from relationships and what I didn't want from relationships growing up a lot. And that taught me how to be patient with, finding that right person. But not only that, we grew up in a household where, things were, we had some good Christmases, some Christmases that were a little bit tougher, if you know what I'm saying. And so, through that trajectory, she taught me so many things. My mom became an entrepreneur in the future, was very successful doing that. And then, now obviously, live here in Virginia. So we've been here for a little over a decade, and had a blast through school, had a blast being a student athlete. And that taught me a ton about having a good work ethic. And then drove me right into what I first started to do was I was a personal trainer. And, I started sort of like odd jobs and trying to figure life out. I think a lot of people are that way these days. They don't know what they want to do. And so that was really where I first started and got my beginnings, very humbly speaking. And so, through that, met my now wife. We've been married for 5 years, and it's been really fun for us to be here in Virginia, and really, kick things off in our marriage and for the future that we want to create for our family.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that background. So, yeah, for the listeners out there, Gabe and I were introduced through a mutual friend that we have, and I was introduced to you through learning about your e-commerce business and your direct sales business. If I'm correct, you actually do that along with also having a full-time job. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
So my question is, can you first of all tell us a little bit more about what you do full time as well as, and then and you're very successful in your full time job. What made you then want to take the leap to also be an entrepreneur as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So my background currently, I actually work in commercial property insurance. Really enjoy doing that. Really more so in the automotive space, and I've been in automotive. I worked for some big corporations in corporate sales. It wasn't always like that. I mentioned that I started more on the personal training side, and figuring out how to actually make the transition. And for me, like I think what most people are missing is they miss the relationships and connections that can truly open doors for them. They think that they can figure it out on their own. And the world is difficult enough, to try to do everything by yourself. So for me, how I got my start in that side of things, direct sales, e-commerce, I didn't know much about that space. I had really a coach that I knew from afar. He was actually one of the youngest athletic directors in our area here in Loudoun County, which is the wealthiest county in the United States here in Virginia. And just saw a lot of what he was putting together. When I was 21, 22, like I saw some different things that they had put together, different articles that they were on. And so he was very humble. So it's not like he like put all his information out there, but through
Right.
seeking and through really wanting to connect with more successful people, shot him a message and we got together for some coffee. And he told me about what he had put together because of the success he had created in business and his life. And I just saw him have a little bit of a different outcome earlier in life. And I was like, man, I would love to have results like that. And so, through that networking and him really, I would say he wasn't like, he didn't just give me all that information, up front. Like what he did was he really helped me understand for myself, identify the difference between what I call what I wanted to do and how I wanted to live.
Okay.
And so, there's a big difference. So many people are so focused on what and how, especially in the information world we live right now. It's what and how, what and how. What do I need to do? How do I do it? What do I need to do? How I do it? And he was the first person who really spoke to me in the context of who and where. Who do you have in your life who is in life where you want to be, or close to, or in close proximity to where you want to be? And where are they applying their time? And if you do what they've done, you can have what they have. It's called 1+1 = 2. And so I didn't know much about, the e-commerce space, online business. I do realize these days, if you like, it's not like, I mean, it's kind of a pet peeve to me. If you go on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, whatever you want to call it, I feel like every other second is someone trying to sell you on the idea that they know how to make money online in 2 seconds.
Right.
Or they can teach you how to do it. You just got to pay them like $10,000 at the end of it. There's nothing wrong with that side of things. There's a lot of value in education and for you to get educated. But at least for my wife and I, what we sought out was, how can we put ourselves in a position to learn from people that were already successful, and then just figure out what they were doing and just do a lot of those same steps to create similar outcomes. So, a little bit about my background, and those doors, even on the corporate side of what I do, opened up through just opening my mouth, man, meeting new people, like not being afraid to put yourself out there, so that you can open up the opportunities that you need to take your family to the next level.
That's all great information. And you hit on a few things that I want to go back and dive a little bit deeper on. So for one, what you just said about the like online people telling you, hey, I'll show you how to make money, right? Um, and I feel like a lot of people out there, they're making money off of selling people on how to make money rather than actually like, where's the proof that you're actually good at doing what you do? That's one of the things that I, always kind of drew me to you, is that you were always able to prove how successful you are rather than just like trying to get people to coach people or whatever. I want to go back to the corporate sales world for just a minute. So I feel like also in this information Instagram world that we live in, everybody's pushing being an entrepreneur, having your own business. You hear all the time like corporate sales, it's not what it used to be. People aren't staying with a company and, retiring and getting the 401k and all that stuff. Like the world's changing a lot. But what are some of the things that are valuable with working at a corporation? What did working at a corporation, especially in sales, teach you that you've then been able to apply to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, there's a couple things, man. That's a great question. I mean, being resilient, being okay with no in a world right now where so many people, since we're like yay old, like super young, you're taught that failure is bad.
Mm.
And what I learned through corporate sales and just like putting myself out there is that you learn that failure is actually fertilizer for your growth,
Mm.
right? It's actually the very thing that you need to learn what you need to do to actually become better. And so, very valuable place because you learn communication skills, you learn the ability to lead, which in our world today is everything. Everyone, so here's the thing, in sales, no one wants to be sold, but everyone wants to be helped. Everyone wants to be led. There's a need that people have that you need to fill it. And in my opinion, what I learned in sales is that there are things that people, if you don't become bold enough to help them acquire, first of all, understand what they actually need, and then actually fill it, you're doing a disservice to the world and their life, because they could be doing better business. They could be doing better for their family. They could be taking things to the next level in all the areas that you have the ability to not sell them on, but to influencing them to make a better decision so that they are able to be successful. And so there's so many things, especially the resilience side of what you're able to do when you communicate with people. So, like more than just one thing that's there. But I would say in a nutshell, those areas are probably the biggest things. It's the no's, it's the failures, the failure is fertilizer. It's the communication that you're able to get, so that then you're able to maneuver conversations with anyone that you come across.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think yeah, also for me, I think being resilient, being in corporate sales taught you to be resilient. And then also there's some good things about being in a corporation where you learn structure and stuff like that, right? Some people are very, self-disciplined. I feel like for me, if I wouldn't have started in corporate, then I probably wouldn't do other things on the side as well as I do, because that corporate life did teach me discipline and structure. Do you think everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, or do you think that the corporate life, or I say corporate life, any structured kind of 9 to 5 job is actually a better fit for some people? Or do you think everybody has the ability to be an entrepreneur?
That's a good question, man. And I want to even go back to what you were referring to earlier, as far as like, when it comes to where you're currently at, corporately speaking, just taking that path the entire way. And because, in the world right now, everything is so quick. Sometimes people think that just because they do something, it doesn't work out for like 1 or 2, 3, 4 months, that all of a sudden it's not a fit for them. And I'm here to tell you, man, a lot of times when people don't make it in that world, it's not that it's not a fit for you. It's like sometimes you're lazy. And like you can be great at anything. You just have to do it for a long period of time. It doesn't matter if you're in the corporate game, it doesn't matter if you start your own business. It's not going to happen overnight. Right. And so many people think like, man, I'm going to do this for a little bit. The average person goes through 17 different industries after college to even find out what they do.
Mm.
Right. It is crazy, right? You go from thing to thing to thing. And so to go to the aspect of entrepreneurship, I don't necessarily think that everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship in the old game. Here's what I mean. We live in a different generation. We live in a whole different world. You got kids making millions on YouTube. That did not happen 20 to 25 years ago, right? Entrepreneurship doesn't have to be this thing where you put in $1 million, $200 million, $100,000 to start something. It doesn't have to be brick and mortar. There's so many ways to create success. I think your average entrepreneur, the mentality is just having a figure it out mindset and understanding that there's something that you are missing in your life and you need to occupy your time to create it. And so, the corporate game and being able to be successful in a career, I think we know that most people need that. You need the stability. None of these big, if you look at like, if you do any reading, if you do any understanding of like where a lot of these successful entrepreneurs came from, your Steve Jobs, all these guys, they all had careers and kept their careers sometimes for years while they were building their entrepreneurial endeavors. Their careers helped them be more risky, quote unquote, because they had something safe, that they could hold on to, so they could be a little bit riskier in their entrepreneurship game. Not only that, but when you look at right now, America, like our economy, where things are at in the world, how much things cost, right? It's more these days. It's not that people want to be Elon Musk. What people want is to be able to go to the grocery store and actually afford eggs. They want to be able to go to the grocery store and actually give their family a great life. I've heard one time that most people don't want to they don't want to be millionaires, quote unquote, but they want to feel like a millionaire does, which means you have the options and choices to be able to do whatever you want with your time. And so I don't think people, are set to be entrepreneurs in the old way, but in the new way now, you can do things outside of your career that, you can be an entrepreneur, because you have to bridge the gap between what your income is at a job and a career, which sometimes does not make ends meet above just paying bills, right? And building other income streams, right? To be able to help your family get to the place where you need to be and the values that you want to live out.
That's yeah, I think that's very well said. You hit on some really good things there. People are looking to just feel like, hey, I'm not strapped, right? I can go out and I can go to a nice dinner tonight if I so choose, and things like that. So I love like the balance as well of trying to of building something on the side, because you're right, you don't have to necessarily go get $500,000 in funding to start your own business. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you talked about the who and where versus the what and how. When you said that, the first thing I thought of before you went deeper into the explanation was the who. Is it more important to focus on who you want to become as you get started kind of in your either career? I guess, and this is really speaking to the younger people out there, you're right. We're in the information age and everybody's concerned about what and how. Is it more important though, in your opinion, to focus on who you want to become?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that it is very important, the who, of who you want to become. That's the person in the mirror, right? I preach personal growth so much. I
Mm.
think one of the greatest things that early connections did for me, finding those who's, is they said your life in the next 5 years will be a direct correlation to the books you read, the audios that you listen to, the stuff you put in your head, and the people that you connect with. Right? Those three things will take your life to the next level. And so if you focus on who you're becoming, right, what happens is here's what it does. It makes you realize that results can be daily. It doesn't have to be yearly. Like if you focus on yourself, you can have daily wins, and those daily wins stack up to having, your incremental growth will lead to exponential growth in the future. So I do think it's very important to focus on who you're becoming. And also the real question of life is not what you're doing or what do you want to do. I had a mentor early on in business who mentioned that. He said, what you want to do is important, but how do you want to live is even more important, because what you do will then decide the future of how you want to live. So if you can figure out that how you want to live aspect of, where are you going in life in the next 20, 30, 40 years, then you can work yourself backwards and figure out the resources, people, connections, and you can figure out the vehicles, the things you're going to do and who you need to become in order to have that lifestyle. That's why people have so many midlife crises these days. What do you think? Because, at 25, 35, 45, 50, people come to the realization that they've been writing chapters daily. They've been making daily decisions that's not leading to the chapters they want to read in the future. But even if you don't purposely create those chapters based on the decisions you're making right now consciously, you're still subconsciously making decisions for a book and for a chapter you'll later read. And so the who, yourself, who you're becoming, but if you figure out what you want to read in the future and then work it backwards, you will be able to orchestrate and you will be able to actually plant the right seeds to become that person you need to be. So that in the future, you actually read the pages you want to read on purpose.
Mm. That's great. I love that. So I want to shift gears just a little bit here and go into more of what you do as an entrepreneur. So you work in direct sales, e-commerce. I think everyone at this point knows that e-com is a great way to go. Tell us about what made you decide to go in that direction. Um, and just talk to us a little bit about, the e-com space in general and why it's a fit for you.
Yeah, great space, man. It's where the world's going. And if you think
Right.
about it, what is the e-commerce space? It's called convenience. And I don't care who you are. Most people know that the world is going to become more convenience based. After 2020, what it did was it sped up the transition of what people expect and how they expect to live life. And so, connecting a manufacturer to a consumer is all that we do. That's all e-commerce is. It's the most simplest term, simplest way to put it. If you look at big companies like Amazon, they're the biggest in the game to do it, right? And these days, when you're able to, like, most people don't know this, but the chain of distribution or the way that money is created in the world or actually distributed from a manufacturer who makes a product all the way to a consumer who buys it. Most people don't question that process because a manufacturer, it costs way less to make the product than it does to be sold to you. Most people don't understand that chain of distribution, but everything we wear, everything we have, everything we use all goes through that chain. And so now what's happened was, e-commerce, what it is you eliminate those middle steps and you're able to insert yourself in the middle between manufacturers and consumers. And so, yes, it is a great way to create income. There's definitely right ways to do it. There's definitely wrong ways to do it. And there's a lot of confusion out there because of how people either do research or what it works. If I go back to the who's in life, right, an early mentor in life, we decided to pursue, the world of e-commerce through the lens of what they had already created. I tell Lauren all the time, my wife, I always say, hey, if I had somebody, that was very successful at selling, rocks, and they were, millionaires and they had the ability to create a ton of success because of where I was in life, I don't complicate success, man. I would have probably done just that. I wasn't, here's what I was not looking. I wasn't looking for something that I love. I know that I may ruffle some feathers here. I don't really believe that life is just about doing what you love. Most of us have been told that all your life. It's like, do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. Well, here's the thing. When I started my career, I loved personal training. That was all I wanted to do. But I worked every single day and every single hour of my life. Eventually, if you attach a passion to a paycheck, it becomes a job. And so what I was told early on was, you need to not love what you do. You need to love what you do produces. I'll say that again. You don't need to love what you do. You got to love what you do produces. What are we really after in life? See, that's why the how you want to live is important, because if you can figure out, I want to live this lifestyle, I want to have these things, then just do something. Okay. If you can find someone in life, just do something that will produce that outcome. And then guess what, man? You can do what you love for the rest of your life. First class VIP, just because you love it, not because you have to put food on the table. So many people get so stuck right there of like, man, I got to do something I love. No, man, just go do something that works. And, when you have the time and money, then you can spend the rest of your life actually doing the things that you love. That's true love.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually totally agree with you. I was listening to Alex Hormozy at some event or whatever, and he was talking about that exact same thing. He's like, the first thing that's most important is getting the income to where it needs to be. And he told this story about this gentleman who was a executive of a company that manufactures caps that go on things like toothpaste. He's like, do you think that guy gets up every day going, oh man, I can't wait to make toothpaste caps, you know? But he's like, but it provided him the income he needed to then build the life he wanted. So no, I think that's I think it's funny you said that. I totally agree with you. So you just mentioned there's like right ways and wrong ways to go about e-com. You see a lot of like the younger want to be influencers out there talking about drop shipping and stuff like that. I mean, you can go type in drop shipping on YouTube and get millions of hours worth of content, I'm sure. Tell us a little bit about what is the right way versus what is the wrong way to go about getting in the e-commerce game for anyone who's thinking about going down that path.
Yeah, it boils down. I know I've talked about the who quite a bit, but that's the easiest way that you can get great information, is like, finding the right product. I think a lot of people focus on right product. I think that's a very important thing. There are many ways that you can go about the e-commerce space. Direct sales, is one of them. You can go, a lot of different companies that you can leverage. I think, and I know for a fact that the right way to do e-commerce is figuring out how you can have products or do something in the space that is called the anyway money space. Here's what I mean. People are going to brush their teeth anyways every single day, right? People are going to, I don't know, put deodorant on every single day, but not everyone's going to necessarily buy a watch. And so you have to look at, e-commerce is all about profit margins. It's what does something cost versus what is someone going to pay for. And then the middle in between is usually where you're able to create revenue. Okay. And so what a lot of people miss is they try to get all fancy with what they're going to be supplied with, when the reality is you just need to find something that works. To your point, he was selling, you said bottle caps or something
Yeah.
like that.
Toothpaste, yeah, toothpaste caps.
Yeah, that people aren't fired up about those things, but it's the result of what that gives you, right? And so I've seen many people who they also do something for 1 or 3 months, and it doesn't work, and so they stop working the plan. So you have to pivot, you have to shift. A right way to do something can be maybe something, yeah, you are a little bit passionate about. A lot of the stuff that we work with are things that you find at traditional, let's just say GNCs, bodybuilding.coms of the world, things that people use every single day. I have access to over 300 different products that we're able to leverage and we're really able to utilize. And so I wasn't passionate about every single thing, but there's specific niche that I'm able to really talk about because of the things that I enjoy doing day to day. You look at someone like, let's just say like LeBron James or, just people who are well known in that space. Cristiano Ronaldo is a great example of this, right? They make more money from their sponsorships. They make way more money off the brand recognition that they have than they do, like actually playing the sport that they play. So, brand leverage is huge, right? The right ways to do things as well, especially when you talk about sales, is, the last thing, the whole like the last thing someone wants is to be sold on something that person is not even really using or really doing, right? That's why you see, these big guys who always wear those shoes or always wear those things and those brands because they're leveraging it, which means they are actually in the game of using those things. That's sometimes what people miss about, e-commerce is, if you're able to be a good, producer, you're always going to be a good product of your product, right? So using them and being real about what you actually are taking. No one wants to be sold on something that someone's not using. If I go to a car dealership, I'm looking to buy a car, my first question for the person who's coming to sell me the car is like, what type of car do you drive?
Mm.
And if they don't say the same brand, I'm like, why are we having a conversation? Because your beliefs are elsewhere. So which means what you're selling me here, what you're telling me here is probably not even what you actually believe, right? So the right way to do something is how great of a product of your product are you, in that game and in that space. And the better you are at that, I think the easier it is for you to actually sell the product, the easier it is for you to actually talk about it, for you actually promote it. But if you're just in the game to sell things with the intention of just selling people on things, you're not going to make it, man. Like there has to be a little bit of a bigger cause, bigger mission, and something that you can actually sell out to long term so that you can last enough in business to actually make the right deals.
Yeah, that's great. I know from some of our previous conversations, I know that you are a big user of the products that you sell. I think you told me a story about being at the gym and you had a sports drink and someone asked you about it and you ended up working with this person. So no, I think that's great. Um, Without getting into anything like, super like political or whatever, we do know e-com is heavily reliant on supply chains, right? Our world, obviously, there's things like tariffs, there's global conflicts, tensions. I mean, the world is just in a unique place. What are some of the challenges in the e-com space as it pertains to, um, at the same time, our world is more connected than ever, but there are a lot of issues. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And it all boils down to your supplier. And the thing is because there's many ways that you can go about doing and working in the e-commerce space. That'll also depend. That question is like, it's a great question, but it's broad based on,
Hmm.
what exactly you do and what you're a part of. We're very, I would say, fortunate that, the suppliers that we work with, they've personally been around for 65 years plus, right? So I think that that's also a big thing in our world is like the people that you do business with, how long have they been in business for? Because when you look at companies and you look at things that you can leverage even in that space, if they've been around for a day or two, it might be hard. They may be hit with all the things that you talked about
Hmm.
globally speaking. But when you figure out manufacturers, when you work with people who have, stood the test of time, so to speak, where they have gone through different things that have happened, it's way easier for you to always remain in the game, if that makes sense, right? Other than that, you're gonna have there's no mystery, man. Like everything's always the same, right? There's always gonna be a challenge. There's always gonna be something that comes up politically. There's always gonna be something that comes up with tariffs. It's never like if you look at the news, it's always constantly something is going on. So as an entrepreneur, you can't be so fixated on what you can or can't do based on those things. An entrepreneur thinks, how can I figure it out? And if you can't figure it out here, then just pivot and then move to the next place. There's going to be times in business where, you have to sort of maybe slow down and analyze versus being so dogmatic to just get after everything. You have to learn how to think and then act, right? So those are just some easy techniques and some strategies. But the people that you work with are huge. If you work with some people who or manufacturers who haven't stood the test of time, they haven't been around for a long time. Doesn't mean you can't do business with them. It's just you understand there may be some more challenges there that they haven't faced yet, and so therefore you may also face them as well. So you have to be prepared for them, right?
Yeah, yeah, understood. So I think that's your answer provides me a good chance to pivot to ask this. What are some skills that are critical for anyone, not just e-commerce and your industry, but anyone looking to become an entrepreneur or looking to own their own business or anything like that, or even start something on the side? What are some of the skills and some of the mindset that you have to have in order to be successful?
Yeah, man. I would say straight off. That's a great question. Straight off the bat, okay. It is your ability to think long term. I'm talking mindset first. Your
Okay.
ability to think long term about what you're doing so you can take the right action steps to actually create them. And so we talked about this a little bit earlier, but we talked about communication, right? We talked about the ability to lead and the ability to own. And so that leading side of things of communication is such a big thing in entrepreneurship and doing something outside of your career, right? Taking the whole mindset. You talked about Hormozy. Hormozy is the one who always says from 9 to 5, I make a living. From 5 to 9, I build a life,
Mm.
right? And so there's going to be a season of your life, okay, where you're going to be in focus mode. This whole thing of like being out of balance. This is a mindset, right? Being out of balance, man. You're out of balance. You're doing this. How you're bunning the candle on both ends. And sometimes that's what people think entrepreneurship is. And you can have a lot of fun along the way, but you have to understand that you're going to have seasons in your life. When you have kids, it looks different. When you don't have kids, it looks different. When you're younger, it looks different. When you're older, it looks different. And so there's a balance between like balance and focus. So when you're initially in entrepreneurship and you need to actually get things rolling, you're going to be your focus window is going to be huge and your balance window is going to seem smaller. But the only reason why you're doing that is so that in the future, your balance, it almost seems like you do nothing. Okay. And your focus is smaller when it comes to business. That's the whole point of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship to me is creating a movement. It's not owning a business. That's being a self-employed owner and you have a couple of employees. By the way, the average business, 3 out of 4 businesses only have one employee. Okay. Small business in America, for real. I mean, that's how it looks. So the duplication aspect of entrepreneurship, most people don't go into business with the mindset of I'm going to build something large so I don't have to be involved. Most people start a business because they love something. And so therefore they are doing something they're passionate about and they do it every single day. And what they do is, you ever heard the concept of someone doesn't own a business, the business owns them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's why a lot of people don't go into business. It's because the end is never near. My mom, she owned her company for about 5 years, and she was very glad to not work anymore. And it's not because she didn't enjoy what she did. She did something amazing for the world, but she was up till 12 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays, and every single day. Literally all the time, right? And so this whole like, how do I balance things and how do I do things? And I think like but I know that it all boils down to understanding what's in front of you. You're in a focused season right now. You better not be balanced at the beginning. Like if you're taking a break every 2 seconds of the day when you just start something, like you ain't gonna be in business any longer, right? Like you have to be focused. It's gonna be a couple years of being focused, all in to do something. So many people are afraid of that all in mindset, but that's the mentality that it takes. And it's not all in as in like you can't see your family, you can't do this. No. If you are really good at time management and you manage your time well, you can have a great family time. You can have do all the fun things that you want to do, but you may have to give a couple things. I don't know if you've ever heard this statement before, but your new life is going to cost you your old life.
I have. It's funny you mentioned that because I was actually listening to someone the other day in like the health space talking kind of about that same thing, right? Sometimes you have to kill the old version of yourself in order for the new version to grow, whether that's in business, whether it's in health, whether it's addiction recovery, whatever it may be.
Yeah. No, it's huge. You have to. It's the only way. So that's that when you talk about transitioning to doing something for yourself, there are going to be maybe you're not going out on the weekends every single night. Maybe you are coming home a little, maybe you are taking your health and wellness a little bit more seriously. Maybe you're not going on, so many vacations every single month. Maybe you are giving away a few things, but here's the way entrepreneurship works. You're willing to put 1 unit of effort for 10 units of result in the future. But at the beginning, you may have to put 10 units of effort for 1 unit of result.
Mhm.
When you just work a career, you're putting 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, right? And so it's 1 unit of effort for 1 unit of result versus as an entrepreneur, you may put 100 units of effort for 1 unit of result. But so that eventually through that focus, you get good, right? And then you become wealthy because compounding time of what you're creating and the skill sets you're building will compound over time for the things that you're actually going to be paid back. But you have to become a new version of yourself for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. And one thing you just mentioned was communication. Communication being a very important skill. You mentioned that kind of at the beginning of your last answer. Do you feel like communication is getting worse for people throughout the world with all the advancements in social media now with AI? I mean, I can tell you, I mean, I use AI all the time, so it's very easy for me to spot when people post things or send emails and it's AI generated, right? I think AI is amazing. I'm very pro AI.
Same.
But I do see it hurting, especially younger people with their communication skills. Can you speak to what you feel about communication, why it's so important, and how it separates, like, ultimately, let's just say winners from not winners?
Yeah, huge, man. I'm pro AI too, as far as like, getting information and utilizing things. I always joke, like, man, if I had AI growing up, through like middle school and high school, man, I would have been a king, man. Like all day. You know what I'm saying?
Would have never wrote a paper myself.
Oh my gosh, man. But what it does is there's pros and cons to anything. And I think these days, when people go to hire somebody, you talk about the recruiting process of what happens in the corporate game and just in general, if someone's going to hire you, people look less at the piece of paper you have and more on the communication that you present them with. Because what you do not graduate with from high school and college is called a self-image.
Mm.
And your communication is usually based on your self-image. It is based on what you believe and perceive of yourself. And therefore, communication is mainly leading. But yeah, it's very much lacking these days, especially amongst the younger generation. It was something that I had to work on immensely. I took classes for myself as far as like working on that skill of being able to communicate, because I knew that that was the biggest separator in our day to day. AI, again, being a great tool, but what it does not replace is thinking.
Mm.
And we have to, as human beings, we have to learn how to think. So automatically, when you go to communicate with somebody these days and you know how to do it, you know how to pause, you know how to relate to people, you know how to conversate, it's almost king these days. It's like it completely separates you amongst the crowd. And in a world where so many people want to be the same, but everyone follows the person who sets himself apart, that is one of the things that you can do to separate yourself that will automatically put you in a position to influence and to help and to lead and to be anything you want to be in your industry if you learn how to communicate properly.
Yeah, that's I totally agree with you. I think communication is probably the most important skill. For one, it helps you with other communications kind of like what would it be like a mega skill, and then there's other skills that kind of come from it. Like the better you are at communicating, the better you're going to be at selling. The better you are at communicating, the better you're going to be at public speaking. Which is another thing that I wanted to get into. People out there that are just through this podcast meeting you for the first time, in essence, they might not know this, but you travel nonstop all around the country speaking on stages, which is incredible. And I just about 2 months ago saw this study that was published, and I forget the source. It was something pretty reputable, like Harvard Business Review, Forbes, something like that. That public speaking was actually the number one fear that people have in a survey. It came before death, it came before snakes, sharks, anything like that was public speaking. Have you always been someone that just was able to speak publicly? Did you have to develop that skill? What would you say is the key to becoming a good public speaker and overcoming that fear that so many people have?
Yeah, no, I was not, to answer that question very directly. As a matter of fact, I took a class in college, believe it or not, and it was a public speaking class. I flunked the class. I did not retake it. Okay, I flunked the class. So if I would have looked at that, I was like super afraid. Like I would stand in front of people and be like, I would over talk. I would, it would be super awkward. I wasn't really prepared. But here's what happens with public speaking and almost anything. The issue is that people are so concerned with themselves, and a good public speaker is more concerned with others. It's not about me, it's about you, right? Especially in the game of entrepreneurship and like helping people overcome things. People are not, it's a saying that, if you want me to be impressed by you, tell me how you have, just like you're so great, and you know all these things. But if you want to influence me, if you want to impact me, tell me where you fell down and how you were able to pick yourself back up. And all of Lauren and I, our story, a lot of times when we have had a chance to go speak in the country, smaller crowds, bigger crowds, most of the time, the biggest topic we talk about is how we were the biggest flops,
Mm.
especially at the beginning. And still, today, we still are learning all the time. We fail often. And like that was the biggest thing. I remember, early on, like being up on a stage, or even to this day, like I'm like, man, like I should be not as like nervous right now to go talk. But it's like, when you learn how to think differently about those situations, I'm actually going to be more concerned if I wasn't, not quote unquote afraid, but more so if I wasn't like have an expectation is what I've learned. It's not fear, but it's an expectation because I want to perform well. And I want to be able to help impact somebody. And I want to make sure that someone, if it's just one person, man, that can leave a room like that and they could say, man, I can become better. I can become more. I can be that person for my family as well. Because look at this couple over here, Gabe and Lauren, like if they can figure it out, if they came from the most humble beginnings and, paycheck to paycheck and a ton of debt and, not a lot. So with that in mind, I've never lost my ability to always think and go back to how our start was. And so that can make you a very powerful speaker amongst others because you're always real with your situation, which means you don't need to be this person for people. You can just be yourself. And here's my belief. There's a very successful entrepreneur out there. His name's Ed Milet. And he's the one who's, I've heard him say a ton of this stuff before, but he talks about the story of, his father passing away and, a lot of different things that have gone in his life. And I actually met him at a seminar that he was giving out in Virginia, had a chance to shake hands. And, like right away, he just really impacted me because he said something and I realized how thoughtful he was in his position. And one of the things he talked about within his speech, he said, you're most powerfully equipped to help the person you once were. I'll say that again. You're most powerfully equipped to help the person you once were, which means you're that little thing or those bad habits or the things that you think disqualify you are the very things that qualify you to impact people. Let's just say, you've been an alcoholic for a long time and you're listening to this and you're like, man, that stuff, it owns me. It has so much power over me. I can't overcome this. That may be the number one thing that you need to speak on from an overcoming stage to impact people. And so that public speaking side, if you find your story, everyone has a story. Everyone has something that they can really bring to the table. And if you can find that story, right, and you've overcome it and you go through that trajectory, you now can impact people because of what you have overcome. And everyone needs your story, right? Not everyone may relate to me. Not everyone may relate to you, Darion. But, if you're listening to this, like you have your story. And it's my belief you went through the things you've gone through so that you can have a story to share with others so that you can actually help another person that we can't touch, but you can, so that this world becomes better because you do your part in actually creating and telling that story as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to kind of look at things because you see, especially on social media, everyone posting the highlight reels.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying there's actually more value in sharing the lowlights, and therefore people that maybe have experienced similar lowlights can relate to you, and then you can help build them up. Am I correct on that?
100%, man. Well, the issue is that it's the highlight reels that people watch. You don't who posts on social media, man, I got laid off today. I mean, some people do, but like it's not an often thing. Like the most successful, like most people are not posting like, and if you are, maybe like it's self-loathing and you need to get rid of that. But most people are not posting everything that's not going right with their life. Everyone posts, they went on one vacation that year, they posted every month. Almost like they're there every single month. And so we always, that's the crazy thing about comparison. What comparison, you've heard comparison is the thief of all joy, right? Because you compare your worst to someone's best. And what I mean by the public speaking side, or even just in general, sharing your story is like, we act like people aren't suffering in the world. We act like people don't have capabilities. We act like we don't have them. Right. And so if we come to people with this mindset of like, oh, whoa, like, like we have all these things figured out and we only know this, you can't relate to people. And if you're going to build anything, right, if you're going to build a following, if you're going to be able to help people, people want to know that you've either gone through similar experiences or that you're currently going through them. And that's what relates to people because they believe that they can actually do something like you have when they can relate to you. If you only show them the greatness, they'll be, man, that's super awesome for you, man. But, my mom's going through some things right now, or, I can barely pay my rent, or I can barely do this. And so therefore you automatically disqualify people from being able to actually believe that they can do it too. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but successful mentor of mine once told me that truth, like truth seekers are attracted to truth speakers in our world today. So many people want to pretend like they have all the answers, but people who tell the truth will always attract the people who want the truth and are real.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. You've dropped a couple good lines on us. It's funny when you mentioned the person on vacation, right? Sharing the same thing. Totally off topic, but it made me think of this line from a Drake song where he talks about this girl. All she ever wanted to do was visit Rome, and when she got to Rome, all she did was post pictures to impress people back home, right? It's like she's not even enjoying her life because she's so caught up in just showing highlights to people back home that she doesn't even want to be around. It's just kind of funny. Through your success in building your e-com business, you have a lot of people that work on your team and work under you. And it kind of goes in line with like the communication and attracting people and speaking the truth and all that. How do you go about getting the right people to work for you? I mean, it's got to be a challenge to attract people to buy in, right? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I like to say this. Anyone I do business with, I know they say don't do business with your family, so that's not what I mean. But anyone that I do business with, they're family to me, man. Right? We have a fun family environment of winners and entrepreneurs that we've been able to coach up and help in business. So I know it's not your intent to say under you and things like that. Under you mindset, because I've heard many people say things in any business, like if you own a business, right? Like if you're the owner, right? People work under you. I've heard many people like stop themselves, like, I don't want people to work because I have a better opportunity than they do. And so like, when you look at like people you do business with as family, yesterday, there was somebody that on just that we do business with, their son just had their second birthday.
Mm.
Right. And we work with a lot of people, but I put that in my calendar and we shot them a FaceTime randomly and we were able to chat. And I just wanted to talk to that little boy because when you're able to really care about people and dive into their lives more than just business and more than just work, that's when you really help people buy into what you're doing. Right. That is probably one of the greatest things that will help you attract and lead and own. Also, just the process. Like for me, I don't just work with anybody. I love people. My love for people is unconditional. Hopefully, you guys understand that. But time is conditional. We only have 24 hours a day. So it's not like I look for pedigrees and degrees and a lot of different things like that. But personally, if I'm going to do business with somebody, what's their track record? Right? What's their mindset? I want to, evaluate certain things, and they should be evaluating things about me as far as like, am I a real person? Can I really help them? Is it a good fit for us to do something together in the future? Right? All of those things. And can it be a little bit of a challenge at the beginning to attract right people? Yes, because there's a few components here. You have right people and you have right bus. Okay. So there's a big difference between right people and right bus. Here's the difference. The right bus is the opportunity that's in hand. Okay. And the right people is those right people that you can attract into your bus. And so sometimes when you first get started in entrepreneurship and you first start doing things, your bus isn't that great and it's not going to attract any of those right people. Okay. People are not going to be fooled. Okay. In our world today, if you want to attract right people, people that are hungry, ambitious, they actually want to win, they actually want to succeed, they're determined to do it no matter what, they need to be in the right bus. And when you create that right environment, you create the right culture, then you can actually attract those right people. Right. And so over a period of time, you become somebody. This is why I talk about the books you read, the things you listen to, and the people that you are around you will determine who you are. People today don't want to be led by somebody who's not as strong as they are. Right. Let's just say leadership is broken down. There's 10 levels of, let's just say level 10 leader. If you're a level 10 leader, you can lead level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. But if you're a level 3 leader, it's going to be really hard for you to attract someone who's level 5, who's level 7, who's level 8. So you have to understand the right bus is your culture, is your opportunity, is who you're becoming. So you can start attracting some of those right people into what you're doing at the same time, especially when we talk about not just e-commerce, direct sales, building a company and being able to build something that lasts and something that actually is going to work for other people at the same time. So there's a lot there to really unpack. But I would say those are some of the most important areas of attracting right people, and really caring for them, man. Caring for people's success, fighting for people behind closed doors. People know that you care. There's that saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And you can't fake that, man. In our world today, especially because everyone's so quick. So if you just slow down and build relationships with people, people want to be heard. People want to know that someone cares about them, in a deeper way than just you're just somebody that's in my company.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. How important is it, especially if you are either early on in your career, let's say for the younger people listening, how important is it to find the right leader to work with? And I'll say instead of saying under, but how important is it to find the right leader to work with to help you get off on the right track?
Yeah, it's man, it is absolutely everything. If we go back to that who in your life,
Hmm.
okay, um, because of we've been very fortunate to have some of the connections that we made, and early mentors in life. Everyone, as I know, mentorship is like it's a very used word these days. There's usually a couple types of mentors, and I'll tell you what my opinion what it really should be. Sometimes you're assigned someone at work. That's not really a mentor. That's just someone who's helping you do work. Sometimes you pay someone to guide you in mentorship. That could be a mentor, but a lot of times, if you pay someone to help you do something, I hope they help you. If they don't, that's not a good thing,
Mm.
right? But to me, mentorship is you finding someone who is a little bit farther ahead, and you build such a genuine relationship and a friendship that they're able to both speak the truth about what really needs to change. All right. That's why being with the right leader is important, because the right leader, right mentors. I've always heard that right mentors don't tell you just what you want to hear, but they tell you what you need to hear. And early on, okay, you really need to have those people or that leader who can really speak to you directly in a way that helps you make small daily changes on your path and your trajectory to your success. So to me, it's everything, because you're going to view everything you do through the lens of the connections that you have. So that leader will help elevate you and take you on, right? Great book out there. There's a ton of books on succession, right? And being able to either take over a corporation or be within the proximity of someone who then you can do a lot of the things that they're doing currently. And that's the easiest way to elevate your career. That's the easiest way to elevate yourself in the entrepreneurial game, is to find someone who, great leaders, great people, they always want to give back. What's funny is the less successful someone is, the more closed off they are. The more successful someone is, the more open they are.
Mm.
So that right leader, they're going to be very open. They're going to be open to the resources they have. They're going to be open to connections they've created. They're going to be open to why? Because they know the struggle of what it looks like to create anything great in life. And when you see someone who's younger, when you see someone who wants to get their start, they genuinely see themselves through that person. And they're able to pull you up to their game and actually help you do things even faster. What mentorship is speed. It's the speed in which you can go from where you are to where you need to be in life, because you already see it. You don't have to go through so many struggles and challenges. You're able to overcome those a lot quicker and get to your trajectory a lot faster.
Yeah, you hit on something too that I totally sign off on, which is you may not always be told what you want to be told, but you'll be told what you need to be told. I have a mentor that I work with, and sometimes I'll have a question that I'm like, I need to reach out. I need to reach out. This gentleman, his name's Corey. I'm like, I need to reach out and ask Corey. And almost every time when he gives me the answer in my mind, I'm like, dang it, that is not what I wanted to hear at all. But I've found that if I listen to him, usually things turn out better. And if I don't listen to him and I do what my hard headed self wanted to do anyways, things don't go as well. Right. And it's that advice that you're closing the learning gap, right? Someone who's advanced, whether it's in age or experience ahead of you, you kind of close that learning gap a little bit by, listening to what they say in a lot of ways. Just a couple more questions for you, man, as I know we're getting kind of up on time here, and you've given us some great advice. I should have asked this earlier, but for anyone out there who has a full-time job but is looking to get started in an entrepreneurial venture, a side hustle, whatever the case may be, to whether it's they eventually want to transition full-time or they just want to do both so they can have more money, whatever. What would your advice be on how to get started? How do you get started balancing full-time work with also pursuing a side venture?
Yeah. That's, it's simple. I know this may seem like the hardest thing in the world, but it's usually very simple. Success is less about what you add to your plate and more about what you take off.
Okay.
I talk to so many people about this all of the time. It's what are you going to say no to that you're now going to say yes to? You want a great life? You're going to say yes to the great life. Okay, what are the things in your life you got to say no to? I know I mentioned a couple of things earlier, talking about vacations, talking about going out every single weekend, going out every single night. You may not be able to do that anymore. We all have 24 hours a day. Why do some people become wealthy and other people stay the same place? It's not about the time we do or don't have, it's what we do with the time that we do have. Whether you have kids, some people have kids, they genuinely work a full-time job. And so there are things you don't have to, you just have to win in your windows. And you have to be very purposeful about the windows that you do have and identifying what they are and then be all in those windows, right? Where things get out of whack is when people want to start something, they want to do something, they have a career, and they spend all their time in a career making someone else wealthy. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Just my opinion, there's things that you want to do for yourself too. And then, you take the rest of your time and you really you're not being purposeful with that 5 to 9 or that 5 to 10, right? If you don't have any kids, man, this is legitimately, there's no excuse for you. I don't there's no way that you're that busy to be able to do something. You may be taking care of a family member, you may be doing different things, but it doesn't take more than an hour, 2 or 3 daily, sometimes even less, to start building on your future. And so the people get this misconception. You ever heard life is a marathon,
Yeah.
right? It's a marathon, but you're supposed to run sprints daily. You can still run sprints daily, right? Through that marathon journey. It's all about the long term, yes, but you have to pay attention to what am I doing today? So, so many people, I like to talk about it from this concept of going to the gym. A lot of people, they go to the gym, they've never been to the gym. So let's just say you've never been an entrepreneur. So you're so excited. You buy, all the equipment, you have the water bottle, you're ready to go, man. And that first day you work out for 5 hours. And then tomorrow you're so sore, you don't come back for a week. And then you all of a sudden go back for 5 hours because you're excited. And then you don't come back for a week. And it's people want to put so much time and effort one day and then they don't, and then they're not consistent. I would much rather have somebody work on their craft 1 hour every single day for 365 days a year. That's nothing crazy. That's 60 minutes. Okay, gosh, if you look at time, we spend 60 minutes. How much time do we spend on our phones every single day? Right. So I'm more, when I coach people, when I help people, when I talk to people in this topic, I tell them you just have to win daily. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. But if you do that daily, it's going to compound over time. I'm all about chipping away at have you ever heard of, there's a successful entrepreneur who talks about the law of Sheehan's wall. It's a guy named Rory Vaden.
No, I've actually not heard of that.
What Sheehan's wall is, it is a wall that's in front of you. Okay. On the other side, you have success. And you've probably heard you start hitting this wall every single day. You hit the wall, and it's called the law of what Hormozi also talks about. Is he talks about if you do something for so long and you do so much of it that it would be literally impossible for you not to succeed. Mm-hmm. And so Sheehan's wall is being able to go through that wall and hit that wall over and over and over and over again. Daily reps, daily habits, daily reps, daily habits, until there's no matter what, man, the laws of success all work the same. Eventually you're going to hit this wall so many times, it's going to break through and you're going to be able to get to the other side. So many people don't buy into that. So many people, they overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. Successful, wealthy entrepreneurs think in decades. They don't think man, if in a year from now it doesn't work, I can't do it. Or in a day from now, if it doesn't work. No, they think, dude, it's the laws of success. It's the laws of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. It usually takes longer, but it's usually bigger than what you ever expected. And so when you can buy into that, It's really easy for you to start because you think long term, and it's really easy for you to continue because you think daily habits, what I need to do today, what I need to do today, and you break it down into small bite and small pieces. And that's how you're able to compound that over a period of time. Instead of thinking, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do. It's like, no, just figure out what you need to do today. And then tomorrow has enough worries. Let's focus on what we can do tomorrow when tomorrow comes. And eventually you're going to look back and be like, man, I built this great life for myself. And it was because you just focus on the daily things that you needed to do over a period of time. Take the small windows to be able to win and maximize on what you do have.
That's great advice. I love that. Even for me, I need to apply a lot of that knowledge into my daily life. You've mentioned books multiple times today. So as we wrap up here, I'm trying to read more myself. Tell us what are some of the top few books that you would recommend everybody read?
Great question. I think right off the top of my mind, I would say that's a good question. I would say there's a classic book out there called Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's a classic. I think everyone should read that book.
Okay.
That one's easy. And that will teach you a ton about financial success. I know if you're listening to this, mostly everyone has heard of that book before. I think another one that is a classic that I believe has really made an impact on me is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Because it's how you think that will determine how you live. So many people undermine that, but just Think and Grow Rich, an incredible book. Right now, anything personally for me, John Maxwell has been such a great, I would say inspiration, but any John Maxwell book, he's got a lot of laws of success books, everything from communication to leadership to failing forward to a lot of these different topics. And, they've been very, very helpful for me. So I would say, those are a couple. Think and Grow Rich, anything, Robert Kiyosaki style, just to be able to begin, creating success. He's got a lot of books on taxes. He's got a lot of things that are actually really good he's co-authored some books on. And then obviously the John Maxwell side, just to name a few off the top of my mind for sure.
Great. I love that. So we're going to get out of here on this. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I'm going to ask you to do something kind of fun right here at the end. So last question, I ask everybody this. Gabe, if you could go back 5 years, 10 years in a time machine, talk to yourself, what piece of advice would you tell that 10-year, 5-year, whatever time frame you want to go back to, what would you tell that younger version of yourself?
It's a great question. I would say you're worthy. I would say what you're doing is worth it. I would say you have no idea how many people you'll have a chance to impact and how their life will be better because you decided to actually live. There's a difference between just being here and actually living. And the last 10 years, have been some ups and downs. There have been some challenges. There have been some late nights. And so I would tell myself that, everything that you're doing right now, every struggle, every victory, every single thing that you have to overcome is all for the greater purpose, in my opinion, for God's kingdom. And, you can really make an impact and make a difference. Just keep moving along. Keep staying in your lane. Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, because eventually you'll be in your chapter 20 and you'll be able to teach people how they can overcome their chapter 1 and get to their chapter 22.
Man, that's great. That's fantastic. And so the fun thing that I want to end this on, you have no idea who our next guest is going to be. But something that I want to start doing, every guest that comes on is going to do this. Give me a question that you want me to ask our next guest on Step Into Success. It can be anything, anything you want.
That's actually really cool that you guys are putting that together. That is a really thoughtful thing. Let me think. I would say, especially if we're going to follow this topic of stepping to success, I think that you should ask that individual couple, whoever it may be, ask them, within what I mentioned earlier, as far as tell me a few things that you have had to overcome that have been the biggest blessings to your life and maybe the lives of others as well?
That's a great question. I love that, and we will ask them, and then I'll make sure that you see the answer.
Great.
So, for anyone that's interested in following you on social media, anyone that's that cares about connecting with you, working with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, social media based. My Instagram, I'm sure we can probably put it, down.
It'll all be in the chat for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I'm on Instagram. I have my LinkedIn, obviously within my email and things like that. But Master Key to More Faith is my Instagram. And then also, email wise, Dawson Family Legacy 33 at Gmail is my business email as well. So I'm sure we'll attach it to the notes and everything like that. But those are probably the two biggest areas there.
Absolutely. Um, it's a Saturday. So, Gabe, I know you got a lot going on. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Absolutely drop some gold nuggets. I can't wait to get this out there for people to listen to. Just want to thank you again, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Likewise, this was fun, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. See ya. Bye bye.